Big deal. Oh, that's good.
After the comments, or right before comments from the public, you can vote again, whenever you want.
Okay.
Sounds good, thank you.
Okay, let's call this meeting to order.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Dad's calling.
No, you're right. They just pieced it together and proved that.
You're absolutely right. City of North Kansas City, Missouri, regular council meeting, June 18th, 2019. We have a moment of silence. Read it. Comments from the public?
Eric, I have a question. We have an item on the agenda that I think people want to talk about, item 10. Do you want to see comments at this point, or do you want to see comments at the item?
I do think it works better for you if you take comments at the time that the item is considered, if that works for all of you. That would be my suggestion, is that maybe you suggest that those folks wait till we get to that item.
Yeah, I think we do have other comments too.
Okay, anybody that has comments on item 10,
Yep.
would we hold that until we get to that point? Okay, then, now, all right, consent agenda?
We got public comment.
Well, okay, I'm sorry.
Can't wait, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry. I just want to make a few comments. Oh, Jonathan Barnes.
Go right here.
I'm right
Let's
there, right
write in
there.
your name
exactly.
right there.
That's me.
Forget it.
I'm on the Planning Commission, resident here, and real quick, I just wanted to thank staff, council, anybody who serves on a board or commission. When I moved to North Kansas City almost 11 years ago now, I couldn't get anybody to come up here and hang out with me. None of my friends would come see me, except for Snake Saturday. Now I have no problem, finding reasons for friends that want to come in and spend time. And that wouldn't happen with all the great stuff that's going on in this city without the diligent work that goes on with the city. That being said, I do have a couple of concerns that I wanted to raise, and one is kind of both in the 2016 memo and the one that was put together today. Well, actually, I'm sorry. I'll start with the 2016 timeframe. We spent a lot of time and invested a lot of money in the master plan, and I was disappointed to see that the council back in 2016 decided not to move forward with some kind of an economic development resource back then. Now, I know Kim has joined our staff and is doing a lot of stuff on that effort now, but when I heard Councilmember Clevenger at the end of the last session say that he's maybe also not for an economic development council, I really couldn't disagree more. I do think it is time in this city that we look back at the master plan, and as a midterm strategy was the formation of an economic development council that could pull from citizens, from and also members of business. And I think a lot of these issues, the bike path, a number of these things, whether or not we need an economic development resource, full-time, part-time, and I think as Kim said, the economic development functions, largely fall on her desk, but she's a very busy person, and there's a lot of people that touch economic development. I think having an economic development council, the time is now to do that, because I do believe that for a number of reasons I just stated, that it would be beneficial for the city to implement that. And with that, That's kind of all I got to say.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Hello, I'm Valerie Swearingen, 3008 Howell Street. I wanted to publicly thank Chief Beamer and his crew. 2 nights ago, we had a gentleman aggressively trying to get in our front door. Within moments of calling 911, we had a patrol unit in front of our house. And then as my husband went out to speak with him over the intercom, we heard they had already captured him down the street. So thank you to your crew for keeping us safe here in Northtown.
Wow.
I'm Bill Smoyer from 23rd and Quebec. Your Honor,
Speak more into the mic. Yeah,
Okay.
there you go.
I yearn for the days that you weren't the mayor. That is when you ran the North Kansas City Magic Company. And it was magic because you set something out on the curb and it just disappeared. We had to storm back apparently on the 22nd or 21st, and I set, well, a long time ago, I brought up the containers, and I had it full of brush, and you explained to me that the lids mean something, so you can't do it. So I went out and got some regular plastic containers. All throughout the time that Town and Country had it, I could set the brush, because I have a tree that's prolific, on fallen brush out, and they would just come pick it up, and I'd be there to help them. One time, your company, the tree dropped it down, and the driver just backed the truck up into my driveway and just started loading it in. Nothing was organized. Back on the 21st of last month, we had the storm, and I had 3 containers there and some things I spent all day working to get out. The driver came around. We had a big discussion. They weren't going to take it. So, but they did take a couple barrels, and I took pictures of that, and the driver was taking photograph pictures and calling the office to get confirmation of it. I voted for you specifically because if anybody could handle the trash companies, it ought to be you. But it's gotten to the point that you just don't pick up trash anymore, and it's frustrating that I spent all day trying to get it into the containers and then be told, no. She never explained why. What was I doing wrong that I couldn't have the trash hauled away? So Town and Country was a lot better than Jim's, I think, because they just seem to be restrictive on what they have. So that's my only comment. And I just would like to leave this with you, okay? So you can see, if you have questions on why you don't tell me what I did wrong.
Someday I'll explain to you why it's different.
Does brush have to be in paper bags now, doesn't it? Or the brush and the,
It's in a paper container. It should be picked up.
Yes,
A
sir.
paper
The
bag.
general rule is that it should be in a yard waste bag or bundled.
Yeah.
But
if it's in
it
a
is-
plastic
it-
container, it won't be picked up, all right?
That is the case, yes, sir.
Okay.
They were cans.
Uh,
It's getting too complicated. Too complicated.
Been that way for years.
Thank you.
You know, actually, I think, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kyle Miles. My wife and I both work at Cerner and live up the road here in Northgate Village. I just want to touch base really briefly on this economic development conversation. Some things that were mentioned, I appreciate that we have this platform as residents. I don't think every city does that, so it's a great platform to have, but I do feel this needs to be voiced. A large part of what attracted us to North Kansas City is the fact that it's a very vibrant place to live, and it's changed a lot in the 6 years that we've been in the area. I do think that there's this fixation around the industrial piece that if we rock the boat too much, that's going to be an issue. I think that's the wrong way to look at it. I don't think that it's a mutually exclusive thing. I think that residents want certain things, not just refined to bike lanes and whatnot, but I do think Kim has done a great job, and thank you for articulating all of that, but we do need somebody whose North Star it is, going out, advocating for North Kansas City, making the case, and then also putting the residents first a little bit more. I feel like from the city council meetings that I've looked at online, it just seems to me that oftentimes business needs supersede residents' needs, and that can be very frustrating as a resident. And I appreciate all you do in reflecting and speaking for residents in your specific wards as council members, but I do want to appreciate council members DeLong and council member Smith, because I do think they're speaking and hearing a lot from residents. Certainly my points and my points of views aren't shared by everyone, but you know, with the bike thing down 16th, I think is one thing, but I think broadly speaking, you know, residents are looking for a lot, and the idea that North Kansas City is unique, I think it is unique, but it's caught lightning in a bottle a lot with developments like Chicken and Pickles, Cerner, where I work, and I don't think it's always going to get that lucky. So hopefully we'll continue to see the council members really represent the resident interests over business interests. That's all. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, moving on. Consent agenda.
I move that the consent agenda be approved as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
May I make a quick comment, Mr. Mayor, on the
Yeah.
consent agenda? It's okay that you approved it, but item number 7, that's on the Plains Car Show. That request has actually been withdrawn by the applicant. They've indicated they may be interested in applying next year, but they did find another location for their car show, so that won't be occurring. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I should have pulled. Okay, number 8.
Short-term conditional use permit, East 24th Avenue Block Party.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. It would normally be an item that would be on your consent agenda, but because the applicant was Councilmember Clevenger, we did go ahead and put it on the regular item so that he would have the chance to vote on the consent agenda without being in conflict of interest. So we
Are
do
there public comments related to this item, or?
So we do recommend that you approve the short-term.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 9.
It's a no, Zach.
Party.
No party for you.
It's gonna rain anyway, probably.
Okay.
There's positive.
Yes. Have to have a little fun now and then.
Okay.
Number 9, KCATA North Oak Transit Improvement Study.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. I'll call on the Community Development Director, Sarah Copeland.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. If you cast your mind back to last December, you had a presentation on December 4th at the beginning of KCATA's North Oak Transit Improvement Study process from their study team with HNTB. And they're now here again tonight to give you an update at the end of this process. They were looking at ways to make improvements to North Oak, which includes Burlington through North Kansas City, to improve transit service along this corridor. And I have served on the project's project management team, and Councilmember Clevenger and Laura Makala, who's a resident on our Planning Commission, were both on the Studies Advisory Committee representing North Kansas City. So we have John Dobies from HNTB here, along with Bobby Hosek and Sean Straight with KCATA, and they're going to give you an overview and answer any questions you might have about the project. John?
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks for your time this evening. I'll be brief because I'd like to allow time for questions. I know many of you are very much interested in the project. As Sarah mentioned, she was on the project management committee. Now, what that means is she steered our work to a large extent. We met monthly, at least, in regular meetings and many other times on special purpose meetings. There's been quite a few studies of North Oak over the past few years. I know you know that. We tried to make our study different because we focused on 3 things. One was consensus, another is feasibility and justification, and then implementations. And the point is to get something moving. The project in short form is a 14-mile bus rapid transit, or MAX route, running from downtown Kansas City to Berry Road and Boardwalk Square over by I-29. It also includes a doubling of service. So During the daytime, buses would be much more frequent, every 15 minutes, which is a key part of the MAX concept. We do think it's justified. It's justified because our projections show that ridership would increase by 50%. Importantly, it is a big improvement in mobility and connectivity in North Kansas City and communities to the north. The gentleman from the EDC earlier mentioned the 30,000 residents in Kansas City, Missouri's downtown area. So there'll be that connectivity. More mobility for jobs here in North Kansas City and throughout the Northland along the route. It also supports economic development. It's not magic, but in concert with the things that North Kansas City is already doing, we do believe it would support those efforts and make them more successful. Implementation is a next big step, and I really would like to see this get done. Projects like this require 3 to 4 years for implementation from this point, design and so forth, through construction and then implementation. So that puts it at about 2024. Most projects like these are grant funded around the country, and we've explored a number of grants that appear to be good fits. There's something called a build grant that the federal government has. It's a legacy of the old stimulus grants, but a number of these projects have been funded through build grants, and that's our recommendation for external funding. Maybe the biggest challenge is getting approvals, simultaneous approvals from the 3 cities and the KCATA board, and that's an important next step. North Kansas City has already done a lot. In fact, our project dovetails very nicely and actually takes a cue from the Burlington Streetscape Plan. So all of those plan elements would be folded into MAX, and because this council has already committed that funding, a lot of the local funding from North Kansas City is already secured, thereby reducing the burden on the entire community, specifically though North Kansas City. This build grant I mentioned, the earliest we could make an application for that is about this time next year, given the cycle for those funding. So between now, or actually in a month when we actually finish the project officially, we'll be looking for those approvals from North Kansas City, Gladstone, and Kansas City, Missouri, as well as the KCATA board. That's a brief, and I'd like to take any questions if you have them. Yes, sir.
I came to the event you put on over on the other side of the building here, and we kind of talked about the route going up through along Burlington. Has there been some discussion about access to those stops via, foot traffic getting to those stops for riders? Because Burlington, 32nd in North Oak and 26th in Burlington seem to be the closest for a large number of the residents here. Having them walk from, say, the avenues or even from Northgate Village, that would be a little bit of a haul to get to the bus. Has any study been done to look at Swift, perhaps, or what that would look like to get closer?
Just a little bit, Councilman. Early on, a decision was made to keep the route on Burlington and North Oak rather than Swift. We did look at that, but the thought was that it should be on Burlington. As to access to the stops on Burlington, because Burlington's on the far west side of your city, of course, much of the city and a lot of the residences along Swift, I think, between Swift and Burlington are a pretty easy walk to Burlington, particularly with the higher level of service. The parts of your city to the east do need to be connected by some means, and we did a little bit of work on that. Sean Strait and the others at KCATA are working on another study that is looking at connecting routes, not only in the Burlington North Oak corridor, but throughout the metropolitan area. And they'll be focusing on that. In fact, we're leaving that study with some ideas, questions, and issues that need to be addressed during that study. And the issue you bring up, Councilman, is one on that list.
So we do have the 238 route that covers Swift, and 233 that uses Armor. And as John said, KCATA is currently doing a separate planning study, Ride KC Next, looking at a total system redesign. And your question about connecting other parts of North Kansas City would really be part of their system redesign effort. So if you Google Ride KC Next, you'll find their page, and they have a survey up right now that you can take to give your input on the system redesign that covers things beyond just the North Oak corridor.
Other questions? We are having a public meeting a week from today, 5:30 to 7 at the Gladstone Community Center, just a bit north of here. And if you're interested to see how the public reacts, we'd invite you all to attend that public meeting. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Howell Street Traffic Calming Cycle Track Demonstration Project Proposal.
Thank you, sir. I'll call on Ms. Copeland.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Periodically, the issue of speeding on Howell comes up. And to be honest, I could not tell you with any degree of certainty whether or not people actually speed on Howell or not. What we were discussing most recently about Howell was about addressing speeding or the perception of speeding along this street, and in discussing what are options for addressing speeding or the perception of speeding on the roadway. There's not a lot of support on the staff level for adding speed bumps or more speed humps or anything based on asphalt to Howell Street. And there are a variety of reasons for that, and I'm sure that anybody here would be happy to talk more about that. But for the purposes of thinking about addressing speeding on Howell, we've put together some different ideas for you to consider. And they are based on the fact that if you look at the existing Howell cross-section, it's a very wide street. We have 14 to 15 foot travel lanes for vehicles. That is extremely wide. Interstate highway lanes are 12 feet wide. So wider lanes generally encourage people to drive faster. And that doesn't even include the space that we have for on-street parking on the street. One of the things, to shift gears just slightly, that we also know about Howell Street is that there are a lot of people who either already bike today on Howell or would like to bike on Howell if they felt the street was safer. And we know this because we've been asking for feedback as part of our bike master plan. This is a shot of our online Mapalizer tool that's up right now, where we're asking people, where do you bike? Where would you like to bike? What destinations do you ride your bike to today? Or would you like to ride your bike to? Where do you feel unsafe in town? Howell is like the second most popular north-south route behind Swift. For people biking today, that's the green, and people have identified destinations that they'd like to bike to on the map. We have a lot of great destinations along Howell, Mackin Park, Dag Park Spray Ground, the library, that people would like to ride their bike to. So when we put these two things together, we thought, well, I thought, and convinced some people to join me, that this makes a great opportunity to do a demonstration or pilot project here on Howell. So we were thinking about 4 key things. How can we include vertical elements on Howell that might slow speeds, whether or not people are actually speeding, that could slow speeds? How can we do something here that is temporary or removable, knowing that Howell is probably going to need to be resurfaced next year because of the existing condition of the roadway? How can we do something that we can then adjust based on our experience and to figure out if it works for us, or try something out? And what are pilot projects that we could do with or without bicycles? And so that's how we came to the 3 options that we are presenting to you tonight. Option A, we could add bump outs to Howell Street at all of the intersections. that would narrow the roadway at these intersections with vertical elements that would cause people to slow down. We could add as many or as few of these as we wanted. It's very, very modular. But the bump outs then would, be at either end of the parallel parking on the west side, or could remove a parking space on the east side to create those pinch points that then would prompt drivers to slow down by narrowing those traffic lanes to 11 feet each rather than 15 feet.
Can pedestrians use that to cross there on the bump outs as well?
Well, this would allow pedestrians to move out in the crosswalks with some additional protection to see what cars are coming.
Better line of sight then.
Yes,
Okay.
better line of sight for pedestrians and better line of sight for, well, the stop bars wouldn't move, but cars on the cross streets could move out once they saw no pedestrians were in the crosswalk and get a better line of sight, presumably for cars on Howell as well. We could do this with flex posts, so we could just use flexible delineators to mark these off. We could add planter boxes in here for some visual appeal. We could add bike parking in these areas because there's no bike parking currently for Mackin Park. So lots of options for adding bump outs or pinch points here to add vertical elements to Howell to slow speeds. Option B is we could do a pilot project with a cycle track on the west side of Howell. We have enough space to add 5 feet in each direction, plus a little bit of a buffer, and still have the 2 travel lanes and all of the perpendicular parking on the east side of Howell. We've tried to present some pros and cons to doing this in the memo that you have before you. This would remove some parallel parking from Howell Street. We have been attempting to count what we see as peak usage of that parallel parking weekdays and on a weekend. We're seeing 4 to 5 cars at peak hours during the weekday. And Saturday midday, we counted 10 cars parked on Howell. There were more than 10 parking spaces available on the other side of the street in the perpendicular parking. But there is a trade-off here. But it gives us a chance as part of our bicycle master plan to test out something that may be a recommendation of that plan and see how it works. Again, this could be a temporary thing that we do for this year to gather some data and then see if we want to make it a permanent improvement. Option C is that we could do some combination of these two things with the cycle track on the west side and adding pinch points on the east side that, again, could include planter boxes, could include bicycle parking that then would meet both sides of that street to create those pinch points. At this point, we're just asking for your feedback. If any of these 3 options are of interest, or option 4 would be to do nothing and to see for any of these bike-related elements what might come out of the bicycle master plan separately.
We don't do public comments.
Public comments.
Have we got any public comments on this?
Hello, my name is Lisa Toll, and I live at 2913 Swift Avenue, going on 13 years. And you want me to?
My name is Asa, and I want a bike lane because my mom says that I can't ride on the street, and the sidewalks for people to walk.
So that's his vote is for the bike lanes. I too like the bike lanes. If it was in a plan to maybe go all the way down to at least Armour. We've lived here a long time. We've had them in double strollers. One of the things we like about the city is how you can get around without a car so easily. Now that they're at this age, it is kind of awkward if we want to do bikes. I'm not ready for them to be in the street. So they're on the sidewalks and I'm in the street. So a protected bike lane. I've gone to all the city meetings. When we look at bike lanes, I think that that the protected bike lane with planter boxes would be preferable in all of the things that we've seen. The little posts, it just feels like it's still part of the road. I just feel safest when there's that physical blocker. And I think if we're going to do it for a year to just see how it feels, I would go ahead and do the planter boxes to get the full feel of that. We don't live on Howell, so I should say that. We live on Swift. We're in a row home, but we're on the opposite end. So I know they would be losing parking spaces, and we should probably hear how people on Howell feel about that. But our vote would be for option C with both the bump outs and the protected bike lane. And I could see that being a great amenity to get to all the other wonderful things that we have in Kansas City, like the spray park, which just is genius every time they start that up every summer. It would just make getting around even easier. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a way we can do a bike lane and keep the parking, parallel parking? Like, instead of having a double bike lane, a two-way, could we have a one-way?
Could widen
Is there enough?
No. We have not and do it in a temporary way. There's just not enough space to keep the parallel parking without making some changes to the perpendicular parking. And at that point, we're doing enough work that it's probably not really temporary. So to do it in a temporary basis, that's the temporary option.
Gotcha.
That street is wide enough that you could probably do something, but you would impact the perpendicular parking, either by changing it to angled or doing something on that side. But again, less temporary, just because of the amount of work that'd be required.
Sorry, Valerie.
That's okay. Valerie Swearingen, 3008 Howell. I am directly affected by this proposal, so it's a good balance to my friend Lisa. My first thought would be, if she's for it, maybe we switch it to Swift for the bike
You guys
path.
could just move and then.
No, we bought our house, we built our house, so we've been there 13 or 14 years. Specifically bought that lot because it faces Mackin Park and because we can park directly in front of our home. We entertain, we have guests and family over. We enjoy the street for many reasons. We enjoy parking there. We are one of the residents who customarily uses the parking for our house. We have been ticketed if we park at the park for too long. So my request is option A. The northern end of Swift already has the temporary bump outs, I guess. It's a yellow painted line that shows where the corner is, and then there are white parallel parking spots right in front of there. That would be a very easy, cost-effective temporary solution to try and see if that would help officially narrow the lanes. As it stands right now, people often think we're parking illegally because it looks like we're just pulled up on the side of the road. But if there were actually white spaces, it might help people get in the habit that that's to give you the narrow perception of the street. Another reason why I like option A is because the look and feel matches the rest of our neighborhood. 32nd Avenue already has the bump outs with the parallel parking identified, which did reduce the lane sizes along that street. So I like the look of it to match with our neighborhood. Again, like I said, we sit outside on our front porch, watch Mackin Park a lot, commend the police patrol officers that are there getting speeders. We appreciate that, and we want the speed slower. 100% fully support that, but we don't want to lose all of the parking there. On our way here tonight, there were 12 cars parked between 32nd Avenue and Clark Ferguson Drive, and that was at 5:45 on a Tuesday. Like I said, option A is our request. If option B or C get approved, we would like to see the parking ordinances changed so we don't get ticketed in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie.
So I walked around the neighborhood last night, and I've reached out on Facebook and eNeighbors and gotten quite a bit of feedback on this issue from people who live on Howell, who live through the neighborhood. My house, for now, until they build the next row of row homes, faces Howell as well. So I'm able to see from my porch what the speed looks like. We hear tires squeal every now and then. But Eric shared a traffic study that was done from May 18th through the 27th. And while it shows an average speed of 22 miles an hour, I think I'm paying a little more attention to what's in the far right columns, and that's the number of cars exceeding 30 and 36 miles per hour down that street. At any given day, there were 25 to 34 cars over 36 miles an hour, and while that doesn't sound like much, that's pretty fast on Howell, especially when there are children and people trying to cross the street, people trying to park. And those occurred at the peak hours right after work, 5 to 6 p.m. on weekdays, and then midday on the weekends. So I feel like the speeding issue, while not extremely prevalent. It's that outlier that hits somebody that's going to be a real problem. So with that, I've gotten feedback, and a lot of what I'm hearing is the speeding isn't just a perception issue; it's a real issue. That a lot of residents do not want to lose that parking. So what Valerie was expressing is what I'm hearing a large bit of people say. Part of the reason is the HOA in Northgate Village has really emphasized keeping trash cans in your garage. Those row homes do not have large garages. So if you try to park 2 vehicles and keep your trash in and then have anything else in the garage, you're out of space. So having that ability to park in front of the home is pretty important. Another issue brought up is sight lines. I think actually most of the options address sight lines quite well. But as it sits right now with the parallel parking, as you pull out on Howell or Swift in a vehicle or on foot, it's very hard to see if a car is coming. So with the bump outs, it looks like, here, do you have the option A bump out rendering? It looks like that absorbs 1 or 2 parallel spaces. Is that accurate?
It depends on where you start measuring from. This is 30 feet in distance. So it's really, part of that is a yellow stripe curb where people shouldn't be parking anyway. So probably not impacting more than 1 parallel parking space right there on the east side per bump out.
Sure.
But that could vary slightly.
Yeah, if we're able to push it back so that as people pull out, they can see where cars are coming. The other part is, let's see, with the slower speeds that could be provided by these bump outs, it would potentially make biking on the street safer. So if these actually do slow the traffic down and discourage those people from exceeding 30 and 35 miles an hour, then biking on the street would not be unsafe per se, not necessarily as safe as a protected bike lane, but it would give that opportunity. And then one other suggestion that I've heard from a few people is, Chief Beamer, I don't know how possible this is, but to have a dedicated officer for a time to enforce the speed limit at that point between along the edge of the park, 27th to 32nd.
That is difficult to achieve.
Okay.
With the other responsibilities that we've got to say that we're going to be up there at a certain time, I can't make that guarantee. And I mean, obviously, we have this information. We will try to give the area attention, but to use the word dedicated,
sure,
can't make that guarantee.
I just told him I'd bring it up.
Fair enough.
First of all, is that a smiley face on that building just north of 29th on here? Is that what I'm seeing?
That is actually roof graffiti, yes.
Okay. I had not noticed that in the packet, and looking at this, I just noticed a smiley face. Sorry, that was distracting me. Okay. First of all, I do not think option 4, which is doing nothing, is an option. And I'll just read you some statistics real quick. At an impact of 30 miles an hour, the risk of fatality for residents 60 plus years old is 47%, compared with 5% for adults and 4% for children. At 40 miles an hour, the risk of fatality for elderly adults 60 plus nears closer to 100%, with adults moving up to 30 to 40% and children at 4%. And where we're seeing these times, based on this report, a lot of this is in these afternoons, these prime times, when these people are going from these neighborhoods to these parks. That's, so, to, oh,
Are you done, Brian?
no.
No? If you're not done, go ahead.
No, first of all, okay, that's my first of all. Let's go to second of all. Second of all, Asa, I agree with Asa. I think Asa's a smart kid in choosing option B. But we do also have to balance the concerns of the neighbors as well on this. And I do hope Asa shows up at the Bike Master Plan Committee meeting tomorrow night. And he might like what he sees proposed on some of these other streets, including Swift. So don't be discouraged if tonight does not go your way. Show up tomorrow and see what we have planned. Also, I saw it in Jefferson City as we were crossing our hotel to go to the Capitol. They had the flashing LED crosswalks. They were solar paneled, powered by solar, and they had a push button to activate. And they had like these LED bars across them that were very noticeable and really got cars' attention.
Are you talking about hawk signals or just a flashing beacon?
Where were the lights?
They were so.
What color
they,
was
they,
the
they were
light?
mid-street. They were red. Oh my God. Yellow. They were yellow. And they also had the sign in the middle of the road reminding people to yield to pedestrians in the middle. So I felt that's, I mean, it's very yellow in that area. You know you're coming up to it. And I can send you some pictures of where exactly, I mean, just kind of but I think something like that, a button-activated crosswalk there would also be beneficial. Another issue, on the south side of the park, we have a crosswalk to nowhere. The crosswalk starts where there's a ramp down, and then it goes to the curb on the other side. Not necessarily related to this, but also a concern right there. Go ahead, Zach.
Well, just a couple of things. I mean, first of all, I'd like to echo Councilmember Smith's comments on the speeding. You know, the outliers, we do the studies, but it only takes one car going 35 miles an hour to run over a kid or an adult to really have a fatality. So, you know, I think it is something that should be looked at. I know we've had some issues on 25th when school starts, and the police have been able to give it extra attention, not dedicated, but extra attention, which has been good, and I think that can be done here. You know, certainly I want to support our bikers and appreciate the young man showing up tonight as well. But I like option A as far as the bump outs. I like the extra sight lines, and if it can slow down the traffic. That's just my opinion.
You know, it's going to be one of these things that, you know, everybody loves it, but not in my street. You know, and that's the problem we're going to run across. And there's pros and cons to all of it. I go down Howell every day, and I see people speeding, but it's not a racetrack. 39 years on the fire department, I don't remember anybody getting run over down there. Now, maybe you know different. I don't think the problem is as big as anybody's, you know, is talking about. A lot of tickets would help. You know, I know you can't have a dedicated one, just like people in the neighborhood call one the dedicated dog patrol or cat patrol. I mean, we hear it all. But these are roadways that we're trying to make safe for bicycles. And I was a kid once, and we rode in the streets, and we took our chances, I guess, but it's going to be hard to make dedicated roads for bicycles and not expect an accident now and then. And when you start talking, and this is how, but now you start talking about putting them in the truck routes in the industrial district, now somebody's going to die there. But I don't know the answer. I'm not against bicycles. You know, my wife said I should be riding one again. And maybe I will. But it's going to be very difficult to please everybody on these things. I don't care if bicycles are on the road, but maybe more education on how to ride those. I think those boys there, probably too young to be on the roadways. You know, we do have a big section of the park for wheels. Now you got to get there. You know, you got to get there, but you don't have to go down Howell to get there. You got to cross Howell.
Almost 13 years, and I used to go every day to that park. And I can count on one hand the number of times anyone's ever stopped at that crosswalk. So it's not just squeezing the road. Squeezing the road would help. I think those bumps that you put in, I'm guessing, were supposed to be a raised sidewalk. Is that what you were going for?
It's kind of like that. They're not. There wasn't supposed to be a speed bump.
Okay.
You know, it's just a raised area that I slow down for them, but I slow down at every intersection. But
we went to the park twice last week, neither time. I mean, I'm just seeing, we've been to the park, we used to go literally every day, and people don't stop. And the worst part is when they're not that old anymore, but when I had the double stroller, and you have to inch the kids in front of you before you can go out and look. I mean, there's a lot of things that can be done with that street, and everybody's not going to be happy. But the fact is, we have the space. We have the space to do many things. And all we're talking about here is doing something temporary to see if we like it, which I thought was such a brilliant idea because we don't have to marry it. We don't have to be stuck with it. We could put it in there, people can check it out, and we can say yay or nay after that. It's a trial. It's a chance to try something.
But if you thought it was dangerous crossing that street, what do you think it's going to be like riding down that street?
Oh, I've done it, and I've brought my kids on dedicated bike lanes before. I would feel very safe doing that.
But do you ever
Especially
use
if
Wheel
we're-
Park?
Yes, we use the wheel park.
Oh.
Yes, we do. We use this city well. We are in it and around it all the time. We do use the wheel park. And we do use the park, the actual park. I'm thinking that this is a unique opportunity that some very smart people jumped on, because if you had already resurfaced, then it wouldn't be temporary. This can be temporary. And when you put a physical barrier like the planters and not just the sticks, it becomes its own thing. It's no longer part of the street. And I just think it would be a missed opportunity if we passed on just checking it out. We're talking about 1 year.
Tom?
And I'm an advocate for a through street, but if we want to slow traffic down, if we truthfully want to slow traffic down, let's put a stop sign on every cross street. They will slow down. If you want something temporary, put a stop sign on every cross street. And then Beamer's over there shaking his head. But if we really want to slow traffic down, let's do it. That'll slow it down. They have to slow down. Sorry, Steve.
Anybody else have what?
I just have a couple questions. One, I mean, I appreciate Asa's concerns and yours, Lisa, because I do agree. I've been biking with my daughter down Swift and Howell, and frankly, both were a little scarier than I expected experiences, especially Swift, a little bit more than Howell, because you have the school there, and it's a little different on Howell. But so I do appreciate that. I can't, though, in good conscience, take away the parking for the row homes because they just don't have a lot of good options. And it's different if they're different houses or in a different location. The option is for people to park across the street at the park, and of course, you know, we would need to change the rules about ticketing. But then you've got people crossing the street to get to the row homes. And I'm pro bike lane more than I think probably most are, and I'm struggling with this decision, but I don't feel like in good conscience I can take away that parking for those row homes.
Where are we going?
I feel like through our
Okay.
I got all kinds of notes, but I'll spare you because it sounds like we're already kind of getting close to where the vote's going to go. So I will go ahead and make a motion that we proceed with option A.
Second it.
I'm sorry, that is,
is-
option A is the curb bump outs and pinch points.
It's the one that's
A
on
is
the
the one that's
screen.
on the picture right now.
Yeah.
Who seconded it?
Valerie did.
Okay. Councilmember Pierce.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman.
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart.
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan.
Yes.
Councilmember Farr.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong.
Yes.
I appreciate everyone's feedback, not just those who came tonight, but also those who have communicated with Jesse and I via email and other venues, so appreciate your feedback.
Number 11.
Budget Amendment, Water Pollution Control Fund, Emergency Sewer Repairs, Resolution Number 19-037.
Thanks, sir. I'll call on the Public Works Director, Pat Hauber.
Thank you. As reported at the last council meeting, repairs were beginning on two large sinkholes in the vicinity of 15th and Taney Street in the PID. Well, last week, 3 sanitary sewer mains broke in the areas of 12 to 1400 block of East 24th and 25th, relatively close area. And yesterday, another sinkhole developed over a storm sewer pipe on Bedford. As we mentioned to council, sinkholes in the Paseo Industrial District occur when the river stage rises above 31 feet, and then as it goes down, it creates a void. The hydrostatic pressure created when the river stage level was well over 31 feet for a long time also created movement and breakage in sewers. Sanitary sewer pipes is what we believe in the avenues. The 2018-2019 WPC budget included $125,000 for emergency sewer repairs, and the current balance of that account is $34,000. Staff recommends approval of a budget amendment in the amount of $160,000 to fund the current repairs as projects and to ensure that there's adequate funding for additional sewer repairs in the remaining 3.5 months of this fiscal year. If approved, the balance would be approximately $75,000 to $85,000 after we pay invoices for all these projects that are in progress.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 12.
Award of contract, City Hall lobby restroom renovations, resolution number 19-039.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. I'll call on the Assistant City Administrator, Kim Nakahodo.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The fiscal year 2019 building improvement budget includes $100,000 to renovate the restrooms. Those are these main restrooms right here. One of the things that we're hoping to do with this project is bring those restrooms up to ADA compliance. Right now, they are considered compliant because they haven't been touched, but they aren't what is considered current ADA standards. So that would include new fixtures, it would include expanding the wall a little bit, and it would also include adding changing tables to both the female and male restrooms. We did go through a comprehensive bidding process for this particular project, and the lowest and best bid is the Mid-America Contractors with $81,450. We do request that you approve this contract so we can get started on those renovations.
It seems really expensive for a bathroom renovation. Was it what you were expecting, or were you expecting less, or I mean, I understand the ADA compliant.
But we budgeted 100,000, so it is in the neighborhood of what we were expecting. And it isn't just for ADA, as indicated in the memo. It really includes a complete revamp of tile and fixtures and really kind of bringing them up to modern appearance standards as well as ADA standards.
It also includes pushing out one of the walls to create enough canvas to get the ADA compliant restrooms.
Did you have something?
Well, she kind of stole it from me.
Sorry, I
I
didn't
was-
mean to.
I was sitting there, I'm thinking, my God, I could probably build a house for that kind of money. But when you stop to think, the outhouses at the park cost about $60-something thousand. Back then, I could have built 2 houses for it. I don't think I think a lot of this goes we're a government entity, but maybe not. But it does seem terribly high for me, even though I'm going to vote for it, because it's a terrible bathroom.
I've
Well,
never
and
used
they-
it. Apparently, I need to go in and check it out.
They are considered commercial grade. On court nights, we do have quite the patronage in this room right here. So they are considered commercial grade restrooms, which are going to be at a higher cost than, I'll be honest, a residential or even small business standard.
And I'm glad this baby changing station in the men's bathroom is something new. I couldn't have handled that, I don't think at all. Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, Lord. Number 13.
License agreement, groundwater monitoring wells in Paseo Industrial District, Bill number 7412, ordinance number 9209.
Harry?
Thank you, sir. I'll call on the City Councilor, Tom Barzee.
Good evening, members of the City Council. Mr. Mayor, before you this evening is actually another licensing agreement for the placement of groundwater monitoring wells. And these all really come about as part of the continuing Superfund site cleanup. As you'll recall, the property located at 2251 Armour Road, formerly we knew as the Habco site, though most of the soil, though not all, but most of the soil has been cleaned up because there is still some there. They have to monitor the groundwater, and it migrates to the south and the east from that site towards the Missouri River. And on the second page of your memo, you probably saw a map showing where these proposed groundwater monitoring wells would be located, as well as where the existing plume of contamination has been found in the groundwater. These are actually being required by ultimately the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, as part of the continuing monitoring over a period of years of the property. When this request came in, and as we move forward with it, I met with Mr. Hoover, and both of us were concerned about the present condition of, the present elevation level of the Missouri River, and we know that the PID especially has had issues with groundwater down there. We were concerned about doing any kind of drilling of any kind down there. So, but Pat and I Pat didn't feel like he was an expert. I certainly was not. We called Leon Staub at Burns and McDonald, the engineer for the Levee District, and who has been for many years, and we've put in there some language. It explains it. What Leon told us, Mr. Staub told us, basically, we do not want anyone intentionally drilling or excavating at this time. Keep in mind that we can still get sand boils at a gauge reading of 31 feet. And at the date that I wrote the memo a week ago, it was at 31.8 feet. And he really didn't want anything going on until the river stage dropped below 29 feet. The person that works, that is an outside consultant for, and we've worked with him for years, but he's an outside consultant for Rio Tinto, was well aware of this. Ross Overby's been following it, assures us he won't do anything until the river is, because they don't want a problem either. But out of an overabundance of caution, if enacted, the ordinance contains language that is somewhat unique in these situations, and that is, I've added language that prior to commencing any work whatsoever, including but not limited to any drilling activity or the installation of any groundwater monitoring wells, the licensee, which is Rio Tinto, shall first obtain written authorization to do so from the city's Public Works Director. And so with that, I would recommend that this the ordinance be passed and the license agreement be approved. Be glad to answer any questions you might have on this one.
How would we keep tabs on that if they decided to drill without permission?
Pardon?
How would we keep tabs on it? Would somebody be out there checking to see if they had drilled or?
Yeah, I mean, these people, I can tell you this, the best part about it is we've dealt with these very same group of people now for the better part of 20 years. They have an excellent reputation also with the EPA, and personally, they have an excellent reputation with me and with Mr. Hoover and the city. Anything that they've ever told us, they've taken care of immediately. These are the same people that we called immediately when we had the problem with the new roadway that had been built as part of the cleanup, Railroad Avenue there, and we had to get in. They said, do the work immediately. We'll reimburse the city. And I don't know if the money has come in yet, but I think it's just been within the last week or so that we actually forwarded the bill to them for the cleanup. They respond very well, and I just don't have any issues at all with this particular group, Councilman.
We have staff out there all the time as well, so it's not an issue, but we would certainly notice.
First reading. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
An ordinance adopting and approving a license agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Rio Tinto AUM regarding the installation and use of certain groundwater monitoring wells in city right-of-way.
I move that bill number 7412 be placed on second and final reading and pass as ordinance number 9209.
Second.
Call roll.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
An ordinance adopting and approving a license agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Rio Tinto AUM regarding the installation and use of certain groundwater monitoring wells in city right-of-way.
14.
Task Order McClure Engineering Armor Walker Design, Resolution Number 19-040.
Thank you, sir. I'll call on Ms. Copeland.
On May 7th, representatives from McClure Engineering were here to present the results of their traffic study for the intersection of Armour Road and Walker Road. The traffic study documented discrepancies in the lane utilization on eastbound Armour. We have one left turn lane that's used much more heavily than the other, and so the result is that traffic queues beyond the capacity of the existing turn lanes. And we also have significant queuing on southbound Walker past the Clay Edwards Drive intersection due to heavy right turn volumes. So the traffic study recommended that we make improvements to the intersection to extend the eastbound Armour left turn lanes, reconfigure the southbound Walker lanes, and make changes to the median islands and the signal timings to improve the operation of the intersection. MoDOT did review this traffic study and gave us their authorization to move forward with design of improvements. So the work order before you tonight for approval is for the preparation of preliminary and final design for intersection improvements and bidding services from McClure that would include the preparation of bid documents, reviewing bids, and providing assistance with the MoDOT permitting process to move us forward and getting this out to bid. The timing, we would expect to have this ready for bids in September of this year. We do have Jay Burris from McClure here if you have any questions about this work order.
Is MoDOT going to contribute anything to this project?
No,
But it is their highway.
this is their highway.
That's kind of the issue I have. I mean, we have here on the agenda item 14, it says task order, McClure Engineering, and then Armour Walker Design. And a lot of times people will say, you know, that's Armour Road. But actually, everything that's east of Ozark is 210, and it's state highway. So we have here, we're looking at a budget of at least $357,000 on a state highway, and the state's not going to contribute a thing to it. I've been down there personally on multiple occasions during the rush hour time, and you know, I couldn't say it's not needed. Is it badly needed? It's not badly needed. It was just not all that long ago that lane on 210, which I'll call it 210. I say 210 because that's Missouri 210, state highway. On Missouri Highway 210, as one goes eastbound, turns left to go north on Walker Road. For many years, there was just one lane. Now we have two lanes down there. In the morning rush hour, it will back up a little bit, more than it should because it comes out of that turn lane. And will make a few cars, on occasion, not very often, but on a few occasions, to stop in the travel lane, which is dangerous. So what I'm hearing is, I see here is staff recommends approval, and I don't understand why.
Well, you did approve it in the budget. I think a lot of the rationale for the project has to do with assisting employees of the hospital and of Cerner in entering and exiting their establishments at the rush hours of the day, maybe more so than affecting even Armour Road traffic. So I think that was a lot of the rationale for the project. But as to why we are recommending approval, well, it was something the council indicated in the budget process, that a project it wanted to occur, and so we're bringing it forward in accordance with that. You can always put a halt to it tonight if you don't want to proceed with it.
That's what I'm saying. It could be stopped at any time. Just because you approve one thing at one point in time doesn't mean you can't say, well, maybe this wasn't such a good idea. And I'm not saying that it shouldn't be done at some time, but I don't see where we should be funding all of this at this point in time. That's my point.
This goes back, I think, back to our economic development. There again, though, we're going to help these businesses, contribute to these businesses to help get their employees back and forth in a safely, timely manner at this time, is my opinion.
Mr. Mayor? I concur with my colleague. It does help with business development. However, I think the return on investment, ROI, is too high.
Was it ever studied during the rush hour morning and evening for a longer turn signal, a left turn?
Changes to the traffic signal would be part of this project.
Was that ever considered instead of adding another lane?
Good evening, Council. I'm Jay Burris. Thank you for having us with McClure Engineering, longtime North Kansas City business. Frankly, I'm the design guy. 2 weeks ago, we were both here, and my colleague, who is more the traffic guy, would have been better to answer the question. I can talk the talk a little bit. Whether I walk the walk is to answer your question. I apologize. Part of the problem was, yes, we considered just keeping the lanes, but as the gentleman mentioned, you start backing up the queue of the left turn lane into the through traffic, and the proposed improvements are actually creating that second turn lane and scooting it back so that we can more efficiently fill the left turns, which means we can clear the left turns more quickly per second of left turn green time, and also not block the through lanes heading further eastbound on 210, which also improves the efficiency of the whole intersection. So, you know, you only have so much time per cycle, and how to most efficiently do that so that you're taking care of all the motions is really what we did study, and there were a number of different scenarios we went through and ran several iterations, and frankly, we were a little bit excited about the solution we have, which we felt the original proposal was adding a lot of extra pavement and extra lanes, and we've eliminated that, and we're really just moving around some islands. ROI, frankly, you're getting a lot of bang for the buck. I know $357,000 is not an insignificant amount of money, but if we were to start getting into right-of-way and widening the lanes and doing that things for an intersection, I mean, just the signals typically cost $500,000.
I would also add to that, the queuing of the eastbound left turn lanes is not the only problem that was documented at this intersection. The other part of it is that the people who are waiting on southbound Walker to turn right or left frequently back up past the hospital entrance at Clay Edwards Drive. So for the hospital, that's the key part of this that they're excited about. And that's not just signal timing, it's also reconfiguring that middle lane so that people can turn right or left out of that, which is expected to reduce that queue so that the Walker or the Clay Edwards Drive intersection is clear for people entering and exiting the hospital.
You know, I'm not so much against the lane, I'm against MoDOT not contributing to it. They own the thing. You know, if, you know, well.
The unfortunate reality of our transportation funding system right now is that MoDOT doesn't have the money.
If I remember from the study correctly, that the issue wasn't that the signal wasn't long enough or that the turn lane wasn't long enough, that they were queuing in the right side of that two-lane left turn because it's a trap lane on the left. If you go in, you're stuck turning the hospital. All Cerner employees would back up, and now we're eliminating that trap lane. So what it looks like is a lot of the improvements are happening on Walker rather than on 210. Most of what we're seeing is restriping, moving islands. That's mostly happening on Walker's side, and it's going to benefit Cerner and the hospital, patients coming out of the hospital. That left turn off of Clay Edwards is crazy hard to do onto Walker at that wrong time.
Well, in the evening on...
Zach,
I'm just curious as to know, with this proposed here, I'm assuming that the hospital and Cerner have been presented with this design, or no? What we've got here in front of us right now.
I know that the hospital is aware, and they are very pleased to see that the city is looking at trying to do something. I don't know that I've seen any comments from Cerner about it.
But the hospital does?
Yes.
They think it's an issue and it needs to be resolved?
Yes, sir, they do.
Well, on the hospital exit onto Walker Road there, on that design as was mentioned, most of the traffic will exit on the west side, which is on the Vernon, than it will on to Walker. And the traffic that backed up there on Walker, it wasn't that long. It was, I really can't recall for sure, but I'm thinking like 3 to 5 minutes was the longest wait in the evening, not during the morning. And I couldn't say for the noon rush hour, and I'm talking Monday through Friday, not weekends. So the problem I have is proper stewardship of taxpayer dollars. I just can't go forward on it at this time when the state's not going to contribute anything into this.
Ready to vote?
Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Brian.
No.
I move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Post.
Excuse me, is the only one opposed, Councilmember Stefan? Okay, thank you.
15.
You were? I didn't want to cut you off.
Professional services agreement with AP Triton, GEMT cost reimbursement report, resolution number 19-030.
Thank you, sir. I'll call on the fire chief, Dave Hargis.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Last fall, you approved our participation in the Ground Emergency Transportation Program. We had estimated prior going into that it was going to be a cost of about $10,000 to have a firm fill out our cost estimates. When everything came around, it's going to be a little bit above that, so this is the budget amendment to cover that extra cost. And remember with this, our revenue should far exceed what it cost us to get this done, and it could be a little less than their estimate, or it could be more. We won't know till we have that first cost estimate filled out, so if you have any more questions, I'd be glad to ask or answer them.
Move to approve.
Second.
Aye.
16.
Budget amendment, consultant services, GEMT cost reimbursement report.
Move to
This-
approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 17.
Budget amendment, assistance to firefighters grant purchase, resolution number 19-038.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. I'll call on Chief Hargis.
Good evening again. This is the result of a grant that we received 2 years ago to put in our new exhaust system. When the audit came out for that, they audit you after you complete your project. Last December, we had an audit, and they discovered that we had an extra $17,000 we had not spent in that grant. They don't like to turn that grant money back in, so they suggested that we come up with some equipment to buy and request an amendment. We did so in December, and with the shutdown of the federal government, last week they told me they had granted our amendment, and we didn't budget for that this year. And this is to approve that the money to purchase that, and it'll be a 95% reimbursement from the grant.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Number 18.
Final plat of Garvey Processing replat of Lot 2. Bill number 7411, ordinance number 9208.
Thank you, sir. I'll call on Ms. Copeland.
This final plat serves to divide a lot that was previously platted into 2 separate lots. This is a lot that's located near the western end of 10th Avenue. The final plat was reviewed by the Planning Commission at its June 6th meeting and found to be in conformance with the approved preliminary plat and the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the plat to you. I would note that this plat shows utility easements and other easements on it. These were all previously dedicated to the city as part of the original plat. This replat does not contain any new easements that would be dedicated as part of it. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
First reading. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
An ordinance approving the Garvey Processing replat of Lot 2, final plat in the city of North Kansas City, Missouri.
I move that bill number 7411 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9208.
Second.
Call the roll.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Steffen?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
An ordinance approving the Garvey Processing replat of Lot 2, final plat in the city of North Kansas City, Missouri.
19.
License agreement with O'Reilly Build LLC for Lot 2, North Kansas City Destination Development. Bill number 7413, ordinance number 9210.
Thank you, sir. I'll call Ms. Copeland.
O'Reilly Build is the contractor for the backyard apartments that are currently under construction in the One North redevelopment area. They are currently pouring footings and foundations for the first building on the site, which we're very happy about, and they expect to receive their trusses in the next couple of weeks. They are slightly behind schedule on finishing their parking lot, and so they don't have a good place on their property to store these trusses as they begin to arrive, and they need to take delivery. So they approached us about the possibility of storing this equipment across the street on Lot 2. We did discuss this with the master developer, and he indicated no concerns as long as the material was removed from Lot 2 by the subject deadline, which is September 1st. So we would recommend approval of this license agreement. I would note that we have approved similar license agreements for developments such as this in the past. We did one of these for Meyer Autos when they were under construction. I'd be happy to answer any questions about this.
Do they have any concerns, Myrados?
We did not ask them if they had any concerns.
We'll deal with it. Okay.
First reading.
It's called the backyard, the apartments?
The apartments, yes, they're being branded as the backyard.
Okay, I'll second. Sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance adopting and approving a license agreement by and between the city of North Kansas City, Missouri and O'Reilly Build LLC regarding the temporary use of certain real property owned by the city for staging of work and storage of materials and equipment during construction of apartments in One North.
I move that bill number 7413 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9210.
Second.
Call the roll.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Steffen?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
An ordinance adopting and approving a license agreement by and between the city of North Kansas City, Missouri and O'Reilly Build LLC regarding the temporary use of certain real property owned by the city for staging of work and storage of materials and equipment during construction of apartments in One North.
Number 20.
Approving accounts due and payable by the city through June 14th, 2019. Bill number 7417, ordinance number 9211.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through June 14th, 2019.
I move that bill number 7417 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9211.
Second.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Steffen?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through June 14th, 2019.
Mr. Herrick.
Thank you, sir. We have a number of staff comments tonight. I'll begin by calling on Ms. Copeland.
Tomorrow evening is Bike-A-Rama, or otherwise known as the Community Workshop for our Bicycle Master Plan. I hope you will all plan to attend. This meeting will be from 5 to 7:30 at the Parks and Rec Center. We feel free to drop in anytime. We will have Of course, all of the usual feedback opportunities for you to comment on the bike master plan, but also a chance to try out an e-bike or scooter. You can try those out on our temporary bike lanes on Clark Ferguson Drive. If you ride your own bike, you can get it tuned up while you're there. We'll be doing safety education, bicycle helmet fittings and giveaways. I feel like I'm leaving something out. We'll have popsicles.
Say popsicles.
So definitely come and have a popsicle. No bike required for that. And, you know, in the process of all of this, gathering feedback for that plan. So hope you will plan to attend 5 to 7:30.
It's 5 to 7:30, not 5:30 to 7.
It's 5 to 7:30.
Okay.
Because
Staff
it's
in
too
the
much fun
notes.
to be contained in just an hour.
Right, no, I totally agree. It deserves 2.5 hours. But in the staff notes or the items of note, it's 5:30 to 7, so I just wanted to clarify. It's 5 to
We
7:30.
apologize for the error
okay,
in the
just
written
making sure.
material.
5 to 7:30.
5 to
But we will
7:30.
be there from 5:30 to 7 too.
Oh, yeah, right. But if people couldn't go, they could expand their time.
Yes.
5 to 7:30,
I
got it.
can't wait to ride the e-bike.
Isn't there something else? Oh, till 5.
We got the Cerner tour.
So we're getting to that, yes, sir.
Oh, well, I mean, they started
Right,
sometime,
so,
one ends.
well, we do actually have a tour for council members only of Cerner. Ms. Nakahota, did you have anything else about that?
If you have not RSVP'd with me, please, I would love to know if you plan to attend us. Cerner would like a head count.
Can't go, sorry.
How many?
And another report.
I had briefly mentioned it, but if you are interested in attending the Regional Housing Summit, it is on Friday, July 19th from 8:30 to 3 p.m. Again, what that is that is part of the grant that the region was awarded from NLC. It's a technical services grant to look at housing and how it plays in economic development. It will be in Gladstone, and if you are interested in attending, please let me know.
I'll probably let you know on that, because I'll be attending their National League of Cities, their first tier suburbs committee meeting that following week as well, so it'd be nice to follow up and report back on that.
So you'd like to go?
I had a
Zach,
question
we
on, sorry.
No, you're good.
I had a question on the Cerner tour. Is anybody able to make that at this point? Because I would really love to go and, yeah, I would really love to see it, but everyone seems to be
I'm going to.
not able to go.
Yes, I have received several people who
Okay.
did RSVP.
Okay.
I'd like to call on Chief Hargis.
Good evening. I just wanted to let you know that next council meeting, we're going to be bringing a budget amendment forward. On the storms on May 28th, we received several reports that the outdoor warning siren at 26 and Vernon didn't operate. We sent crews up there to check in that, and they discovered that siren had been hit by lightning, and it is not repairable. So we did not anticipate that large. If it's going to be a little over $22,000 to replace the siren, we did not budget for that. So I was just kind of letting you know that we're going to be coming forward with that for next week. And even though that siren's not operating, I think there's still, you can still hear sirens if you're outside in that area. So, but we're working on getting that replaced. And our insurance company will be covering the portion outside of the deductible. We're working with them at this time to get that all taken care of, but I just wanted to give you a heads up on that.
Will that come from gaming, I'm assuming?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
What location?
Well, we need it.
26 in Vernon.
Oh, 20.
26 in
Yep,
Vernon.
Thank you.
Still cheaper than the bathroom.
And just FYI, the river level today was at 26 feet.
Wow.
Oh, good.
That's good.
Thank you. Just a few items from me. We do have 2 reports in your packet, the upcoming city items of note, and our quarterly update to you on the status of strategic plan items. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to try to answer them. Also, we had talked to you, I believe it was at your last meeting about, or maybe the one before, about having a demonstration for the archway sign of some augmented lighting. Because it's the middle of the summer, of course, it's getting dark rather late. So we thought about it, and we did discuss with Councilmember Clevenger, since he's the council member who brought this up in the first place, whether it would be okay to hold off on that demonstration for a little bit later in the summer, so that we don't have to do it so late at night. So that's, Mr. Clevenger said that would be okay. So that's our plan. So we don't have a date for you at this time, but we'll plan on coming back here in a couple of months or so when it's getting darker earlier and doing that then. And lastly, I would just note that I will be away the first week of July, which includes the next council meeting on July 2nd, so I will not be present for that meeting. That's all we have, sir. Thank you.
Just a couple things. First, I want to just clarify that I am a huge proponent of River North, have been since the beginning. Matter of fact, in planning sessions and whatnot, when people would criticize and say we don't want to turn this into Westport, I was the first one who said it's not Westport. So I just want that to be clear and on the record, because I'm not so, at this point in time, in favor of the Economic Development Council, but I'm also going to do some research on that. I just wanted to say one thing that happened last week, and it's really important because I think the whole chain of command thing that we're all aware of worked really well. I got a phone call from a woman at 10th and Swift, a business there, and they had a hole that they were upset about. She had indicated she had tried to contact the city. We all know how that goes, may or may not have been the case. But when she called me, they were getting ready to pour their own cement. And so I suggested to her that she cease and desist. That would be a bad idea all the way around. And let me try to contact Eric and see what we could do. And I did, and received an email from her 15 minutes later saying, thank you very much. Pat and his crew were down there. Everybody was happy. They did not pour their own concrete, which is really good. That would have been a whole nother issue. And I just emphasize, sometimes it seems silly if we contact Eric when it's about, like the grass is too long. But this could have been a really major issue. This is an issue where they were really upset, and if they had poured concrete, or I tried to get hold of Pat myself or taking matters into my own hands, there's a reason that it goes through Eric and on down through the city. And it worked really well. And now we don't have to sue that company, and everybody's happy, and we move forward. So I think that's really important to say. And I will not be at the bike thing because I am speaking to the Seroptimist tomorrow night, unfortunately. I mean, I'm doing Cerner and then Seroptimist, but I would like to hear what happens from that. Thank you, Sarah. That's it.
I want to thank the staff for responding in a timely manner to all of my pestering questions. I get questions from constituents, pass them along, and I've gotten answers to everything, and they've been great. Thank you so much for all of that. Additionally, it's great to see members of the public come out and speak on issues that matter to them, to provide feedback to council members, and to come and talk at a council meeting. So it's great to see people being engaged. Thanks.
I agree, and I have nothing else to say.
Couple of things. Well, first of all, I want to thank everybody coming down and talking about the Howell Street issue, and thank our council members for Ward 2 and taking the lead on that. So I'm glad that we could save our parking that we have now. Parking is a premium in this city, and also be able to attempt to slow the speeds down. So I'm very happy that we could come to a consensus on that. Regarding the archway sign, yeah, we're definitely going to wait till later on in the year when it gets darker earlier. Did we ever get my question answered on the mock-up price? Is that locked in?
Yes, sir.
It is locked in. Okay, great. And I want to thank all the comments about the EDC, or the economic development. We certainly want to make sure that we let our residents know that we listen to them. We listen to our business owners as well. I'm not opposed to any kind of any extra efforts for economic development. I'm not totally sold on the EDC, but I'm always willing to listen and to look into things further. So I hope Jonathan's listening on that. Other than that, that's basically all I have.
I wanted to, actually, I wanted to vote no on 8 tonight, but I didn't. That block party, it's in the 1000 block, and I'm in the 800 block, but I will give you an update since all the bicycle talk, and you're going to do that tomorrow night too, is, back in the winter, I requested a bicycle rack where you can lock your bicycles at the park building. And I got an update the other day that possibly by the end of July, they can have it in. I went home after that meeting, got on the internet, and I could have got one delivered free in 2 days. But I don't know, maybe it's the same guy building the bathroom back here. I don't know. And, well, I guess I'll just end it there and let Freddie know.
No, go ahead, keep going. I won't have anything tonight. Thank you.
I can't top Rick.
I think Councilmember Stewart had a good idea for some Amazon renovation over here, so. No, I went to Arts in the Park this weekend. Very well attended on Friday and a good event. Glad to see everyone out there. It's nice going last. That's it.
I think everything's been said. Moving on, 23, 24.
Consideration of a request to hold and recess into an executive session as requested by the city councilor to be held on this date on a litigation matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statute, Section 610.0211.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now I've got to
Call the roll.
Oh, call the roll.
Councilmember Pierce,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman. Yes. Councilmember Clevenger.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart.
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan.
Yes.
Councilmember Farr.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong.
Yes.